The moon hung low over the city of angels, its light a thin blade drawn across the sky. The streets below were quiet, too quiet for the night of all nights, when masks should have danced and fire should have burned. Yet the city slept uneasily, as though it sensed a forgotten heartbeat stirring beneath its feet. The graveyard at the city's edge, breathed with fog, marble angels stood watch, their faces worn smooth by rain, their wings heavy with moss and time. Among them lay a solitary grave, marked by a single mask hung upon its stone. A pale face with one black tear painted beneath the left eye. A rustle broke the silence. From the black air descended the crow, wings cutting the fog, feathers shimmering like oil and starlight. It landed atop the headstone, claws clicking softly against the stone's inscription. Its eyes glowed faint gold, twin embers of memory. For a long while, it only watched the mask. The night wind sighed through the trees, whispering of sins yet unconfessed. The city murmured in its sleep. Then, from somewhere distant, faint as breath, came a sound, the echo of a scream. Not a scream of rage, not even of pain, a plea. The crow tilted its head, listening. The sound wound through the city's bones, through alleys slick with rain, through the heart of every broken promise that the city of angels had ever made. It found the grave and sank into the soil like a whisper into water. The crow's gaze deepened. A tremor passed through the ground. Dust shivered upon the mask. Then, impossibly, a single tear formed in the hollow painted eye and slid down the porcelain cheek. It glittered in the moonlight, warm living, and fell upon the soil. Where it touched, the earth stirred, soft as breath, slow as awakening. The crow spoke, its voice a whisper of wings and ash. It is time. You are needed again. Gabriel Wren. The soil cracked. A faint heartbeat pulsed below. Slow but certain, the fog thickened, coiling around the grave like smoke from a long dead fire. The crow spread its wings wide, shadow spilling from its feathers, and the world seemed to fold inward, drawn toward the heartbeat's echo. Beneath the earth, Gabriel Wren. He dreamed of rain that would not wash away the blood. He dreamed of Elena's hands reaching for him through the storm. He dreamed of the city he had saved, crumbling again into fear and superstition. And above all, he dreamed of the voice of the crow, the voice that was both his conscience and his curse, calling him home. When his eyes opened, they were black mirrors. He pressed a hand upward, fingers breaking through the soil. The air rushed in, tasting of rust and river water. His mask hung before him, faintly trembling, as if waiting for his touch. He took it and placed it over his face. The tear mark glistened once, then dried. The crow hopped closer, head bowed. The city forgets quickly, it said. Its angels have become men again, men who play at gods. Gabriel rose, the earth fell away from his shoulders in quiet surrender. His long coat, tattered from another life, clung to him like smoke. Around him, the tombstones bent in the wind, bowing toward their restless brother. Show me, he whispered. His voice was low, raw from centuries of silence. The crow's wings unfurled, its eyes flared bright, and Gabriel saw. He saw a girl, no more than 17, running through rain-slick streets. Her breath came in clouds. Behind her, shapes moved, men in masks, their laughter muffled by cloth and malice. She stumbled, fell, and was seized. The vision flickered, the scene twisted into a stone altar, cold and glistening beneath the moon. A man in a golden mask stood behind it, chanting words that turned the air to ice. Gabriel gasped and tore himself from the vision. The crow landed on his arm, trembling. They call themselves brothers of blood! It croak, mortals who worship fear. They hunt what they do not understand. They make sacrifice to nothing! From the fog, the girl's spirit appeared, pale, luminous, her eyes wide with the terror of unfinished life. Please, she whispered, help them. Help the girls of the City of Angels, I heard them say. They have a bigger target. The air stilled. Gabriel's hands closed into fists behind his mask. His mouth shaped a single vow. I will. The crow's feathers ruffled in approval. The wind shifted east toward the...
Dawn never truly came to the City of Angels. If angels, it merely bled paler shades of darkness across the skyline. Fog pooled between the crooked towers like stagnant water, and the first light of morning broke upon windows long cracked and blind. Gabriel Wren walked unseen through the waking streets, a shadow that cast no echo. Beneath the mask, his breath was cold, measured, human yet not. The crow followed above, a black stain drifting through the half-light, its cry scattering the last of the night's silence. He felt it, the heartbeat of the city, uneven and fevered. Fear pulsed through every alley, every broken lamplight. Somewhere beneath the stone, the dead whispered in chorus. They are not wizards. The crow muttered as it landed on a rusted cross. They are only men, but men believing themselves gods can do the devil's work. Gabriel's eyes traced the graffiti burned into the walls. Circles within circles, crude symbols of power scrawled in red paint that had once been blood. Names of missing girls flickered in his mind. Voices half remembered from another life. He turned down an alley choked with steam and old prayers there. Amid the refuse, a shape awaited him, a pale shimmer no larger than a child. The ghost of the girl. She hovered a few inches above the ground, the hem of her white dress drifting like smoke. Her hair hung wet and tangled, and when she raised her face, her eyes were wide as the sky! Gabriel Wren. Her voice was a tremor of wind through leaves. You heard me. I saw what they did. His tone was soft, stripped of anger. Only sorrow lived there now. They said it was for cleansing, she whispered. They said the city was cursed. They said girls like me were touched by the moon and that the moon made us witches. Her words struck him like the toll of a church bell. Witches. The word had returned, dressed in new lies, but carrying the same hunger. Where are they? He asked. She pointed toward the skyline where the river cut the city in two. By the water in the old quarter, they built an altar in a warehouse, painted in fire and salt. But they're moving soon to the church where angels fell! The church. The crow hissed. San Sebastian, once holy, now hollow. The girl's image flickered. He waits there. The man in the golden mask. Gabriel stepped closer, but his hand passed through her like mist. What do they want? They want power. She breathed. They want to make the city fear the dark so much that they can rule it. Then her tone broke. They want another offering, a woman, a bigger sacrifice. I heard them say her name once. She stopped, trembling, and her gaze shifted past him. Someone watches. A shape moved at the alley's mouth. A man in a crimson coat, face half hidden by a mask shaped like a snarling beast. His eyes glinted yellow in the fog. He smiled, too calm, too knowing, and slipped away before Gabriel could move. The crow shrieked and took to the air. They sent your resurrection. Gabriel knelt beside the ghost. Go, he said gently, find peace. You are free now. But she shook her head. I can't, not while they still take others. Her form faded into a single white moth that fluttered once, twice, and dissolved into ash. Gabriel closed his eyes. The ashes rose on the wind and scattered toward the river. He stood and turned to the crow. Then we hunt. The bird nodded once. Solemnly, the brothers of blood are many. Their roots run through church and police, through silver and scripture. You will need more than wrath. I have love, Gabriel said quietly. That is enough. At that word, far away, Elena stirred in her bed, her hand brushing the sketch she had drawn the night before. A faceless man beneath a bleeding moon. The ink had not yet dried, though she swore she had finished it hours ago. She dreamed of wings beating against her window and a voice whispering her name through glass. They have a bigger target, it said, and that target is you.
In the underbelly of the city of angels, the night never truly ends. It pools like tar in the cracks of the streets, seeps beneath iron doors, and fills the lungs of those who breathe too deeply of their own hunger. Here, in a labyrinth of forgotten tunnels and flooded catacombs, the brothers of blood gathered.
They came cloaked in crimson, faces hidden behind masks of beasts, birds, and angels, each mask a promise, each lie a prayer. Candles lined the chamber, their wax melted into stalactites that dripped like slow tears. The air smelled of iron, incense, and fear. At the center stood a man crowned in gold. His mask gleamed faintly, reflecting every flame, every trembling soul that dared look upon him. Beneath it, his voice rolled like thunder beneath silk. Brothers, he said, the city rots again. Its women whisper spells in secret. Its children dream of wings. It is time to cleanse the filth from our streets. The crowd murmured assent. Some struck their chests, others traced sigils in the air. Their zeal was madness wearing the robe of order. The man in gold raised a hand. We are the keepers of purity. The world mocks faith, but we, his tone rose. We will become faith, flesh bound by belief, fear made holy. The candles trembled in their wax pools. Shadows rippled along the walls, forming shapes that looked too much like wings. At the edge of the gathering, a figure watched unseen. Gabriel stood cloaked in the dark, his mask blending with the stone. The crow perched high in the rafters, a silent sentinel. Its eyes caught the golden reflection and dimmed it to ash. Gabriel's gaze lingered on the leader. Something in the man's poise felt wrong, not human arrogance, but a hollowness that mimicked faith without understanding it. This was not a man serving a god. This was a man seeking to become one. He whispered to the crow, "They use fear to hold power." The crow's answer was soft and bitter. Fear has always been a god men serve willingly. Below, the ritual began. A red cloth was unfurled upon the altar. Upon it, a crude emblem, the outline of an eye surrounded by thorn circles. The brothers chanted, their voices merging into a droning hymn that vibrated through the walls. The leader held up a book bound in cracked leather. The world has forgotten its boundaries, he intoned. But through blood, we remember. He drew a blade across his palm and let the blood drip onto the cloth. The others followed, one by one, until the altar ran wet and steaming. They did not summon demons that night. They summoned something older, belief without mercy. Gabriel's jaw tightened. He could feel the energy of the crowd, not mystical but human. Rage, guilt, loneliness, all twisted into obedience. This was not magic. This was despair weaponized. The golden mask turned suddenly toward the shadows. For a heartbeat, Gabriel thought the man could see him. Then the leader laughed, slow and cruel. "The dead walk again," he said softly, voice echoing against the stone. I smell the dirt of graves on the wind. The brothers froze. A murmur rippled through them. "You mean the Wraith?" One whispered, "The Avenger." The man in gold smiled beneath his mask. A ghost cannot harm the righteous. If he comes for us, he will find not fear, but faith. Gabriel stepped back into the darkness, the crow's wings brushing his shoulder. "He knows you,"
The crow said, "He speaks as if waiting. Then he shall have his wish." Gabriel's voice was the sound of stone breaking. He turned and climbed toward the surface, each step ringing like a tolling bell behind him. The chanting resumed, low, fevered, rising. The city above vibrated with it, as if every street, every neon sign, every heart within its decaying walls had begun to pulse to the rhythm of that blasphemous hymn. Outside, rain began to fall. The drops hit the pavement like whispers from the dead. In their reflection, the golden mask shimmered faintly, unseen by mortal eyes. The crow landed beside Gabriel, feathers slick with rain. This is not vengeance, it warned. This is war. Gabriel looked toward the skyline, toward the cathedral spires that pierced the clouds like broken wings. Then let war come, he said, and the city answered with thunder.
Morning came, reluctantly, to the city of angels. The fog had thinned, but the light it revealed was gray, bruised, uncertain, the color of ghosts. Through the window of a small apartment on the edge of the river district, a candle burned low, its flame shivering with every sigh of the wind. Before it sat Elena, paintbrush trembling in her fingers, eyes hollow from dreams that refused to fade. The canvas before her was nearly black, save for the faint shape of wings rising from shadow. She did not remember painting them. She never remembered the wings. A whisper moved through the room, too soft to have come from her lips. He walks again. Elena dropped the brush. It rolled across the table, leaving a streak of crimson on the wood. Her heart hammered, the sound loud in the hush of the morning. She pressed a hand to her chest and looked toward the window. There, beyond the glass, fog swirled like the breath of something unseen. Her dreams had returned weeks ago, though she had tried to ignore them. Dreams of rain, of feathers falling across her skin, of a masked figure standing among tombstones. Each night the same whisper followed her into waking. Elena. She rose, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, and crossed to the easel. The painting seemed to move, not with life, but with memory. Beneath the layers of dark pigment, faint outlines shimmered, a grave, a mask, a tear. Her voice shook. Gabriel. The candle flickered. The window rattled once, twice, and then silence. She turned away and went to the balcony below. The city sprawled in its half-light, the river glinting like a vein of tarnished silver, the streets littered with yesterday's sins. Somewhere far off, church bells tolled, but the sound was warped, dissonant, as if struck by trembling hands. A shadow crossed the balcony rail.
Elena looked up and saw it, a crow, blacker than night, perched against the rising dawn. Its feathers were ragged, one wing bound in some old scar, yet its eyes were bright, alive with a knowing that pierced her to the bone. She froze, breath held. Yo! The bird tilted its head. A single feather fell from its side, drifting down until it landed upon her open palm. She felt heat through it, not pain, not fire, but life. He hears you, came the whisper. He remembers. Tears welled in her eyes. No, it can't be. He's gone. He's been gone a year. The crow ruffled its feathers. Its gaze shifted toward the east, toward the skyline where cathedral spires rose against the clouds. It made a soft, broken sound, half call, half sigh, then took flight, vanishing into the mist. Elena sank to her knees, clutching the feather to her heart. Her breath came fast, uneven around her. The air felt charged, electric, as though the world itself had exhaled after a long silence. She looked back at the painting and gasped. Where the black wings had been, a figure now stood masked, half shrouded in fog. The tear on his cheek glistened wetly, impossibly real. Gabriel, she whispered again, not as disbelief now, but as prayer. Outside, the sky dimmed, though it was still morning. Thunder murmured over the river. In the reflection of the glass door, she saw her own face beside his. Her eyes, his mask, two halves of the same sorrow. Something inside her stirred, not fear, but recognition. In the streets below, sirens began to wail. Another disappearance. Another girl lost to the night. Elena turned toward the sound, her hands trembling, the feathers still warm against her palm. I will find you, she said softly to the echo of the crow's cry. And I will find him! Far across the city, in the shadow of a ruined church, Gabriel Wren paused mid-step. The crow on his shoulder gave a sharp cry. He looked toward the river, toward a balcony bathed in gray light. Though he could not see her, he felt her. Two hearts, divided by death, beat once in the same rhythm. The city held its breath, and the storm began.
The city's forgotten quarter slept beneath a sky bruised with stormlight. Broken glass glittered in the gutters like old constellations, and the wind smelled of rain, oil, and rot. Gabriel moved through it without sound, his boots tracing paths through puddles that reflected nothing at all. The crow flew ahead, weaving between the bones of ruined tenements. It landed atop a rusted sign that once read, St. Bridget's School for Girls. The letters were almost gone now, eaten by rust, but the ghosts of laughter still clung to the stones. Here, the crow said, where innocence was first sold. Gabriel pushed open the gate. It screamed softly on its hinges, the voice of a memory too long unspoken. Inside, the air was thick with dust and rain leaking through the roof. Desks lay overturned, chalkboards splintered. The walls were scribbled with names, hundreds of them, each carved by a trembling hand. He touched one of the carvings. Beneath the grime, he read, Lydia, a name whispered by a ghost. From the far corner came a sound, a child's sob, soft and hollow, like wind through a flute. Gabriel turned. There she was again, the ghost child, the same one from his vision. Her dress was torn, her eyes glowed faintly with sorrow instead of light around her. The air shimmered as if water rippled through invisible glass. Lydia, Gabriel said gently. She nodded. Her voice when it came was a hush of leaves. You remembered. I never forget the lost, he replied. She walked closer, her bare feet making no sound on the cracked tiles. They used to keep us here before they took us to the river. The Brothers of Blood. She flinched at the name as if it burned. They came in the night dressed like priests. They told us the city was sick, that we were the sickness, but we were only children. Gabriel's fists clenched at his sides. Where did they take you? To the warehouse by the docks. They called it sanctum, but it isn't holy. It's where they hide their altar now. She hesitated, her eyes flicked toward the windows where rain streaked the glass. They're planning another ceremony bigger than the one I told you about. Gabriel knelt, lowering his mask so his gaze met hers behind him. Lightning flashed, a brief harsh light across a face that was neither alive nor entirely dead. Tell me, he said, who is their next offering? Lydia's expression softened with pity. You already know. For a heartbeat, he didn't understand then. Realization, Elena. He rose quickly, the crow shifting on his shoulder with a harsh cry. When? Soon, Lydia whispered. When the new moon rises, when the city sleeps. He reached for her, but his hand passed through. She began to fade, her outline dissolving into the air like smoke into wind. Don't go, he said. You've suffered enough. Let me free you. But she shook her head. You can't free what's already forgiven. Her smile was sad, luminous. Save her. That's how you save me. She turned away, stepping through the wall as if it were water. The rain outside thickened, thunder cracked like a warning from heaven. Gabriel stood alone in the ruined classroom, the names of the forgotten surrounding him like a choir. He traced Lydia's name again, and beneath his touch, the letters began to glow faintly. Each stroke of the carving lit from within. Then the glow spread to the walls, the desks, the ceiling, until the whole room pulsed stepped into the rain. The water ran red in the alleyways, though no blood had yet been spilled. The city's church bells began to toll again, not from faith, but fear. Somewhere beneath the ringing, a girl screamed! And Gabriel Wren began to walk faster.
Night bled through the city once more. The neon lights flickered on, pale blues, sickly pinks, the colors of false salvation. Rain hissed against the pavement, washing the bloodless grime into the drains where whispers of the dead rode the current. Gabriel Wren moved through it all, unseen but not unfelt. Where he walked, streetlights dimmed. Where he paused, stray dogs fell silent. He was the echo of a promise made in another life, the shadow of the man love had made and death had perfected. Above him, the crow glided low, its wings cutting through the halo of street lamps. Each pass of its feathers left trails of black motes that hung briefly in the air like fragments of night refusing to fade. They spread like rot. The crow said, from the churches to the casinos, from the police to the pulpit, fear is the new currency of the brothers of blood. Gabriel stepped over a broken sign, repent and rise. The words had been painted decades ago and bled now into the wet concrete. He crouched beside a half-burned flyer, drifting in a puddle across it. Faint letters read, Sanctum, the holy fire revival, redemption for the lost. The corner of his mouth twisted. They hide their rituals in plain sight. Men often do. The crow answered, it makes the lie easier to love. They turned a corner into the electric heart of the city. Music throbbed behind blackened windows, laughter too sharp to be joy. Women leaned against walls painted with despair. Men traded powders for salvation, and somewhere above the moon glared down, pale and merciless. Gabriel paused at a bar called the Serpent's Hymn. A red neon serpent coiled around a flickering cross above the door. Inside, the air reeked of gin and gasoline, and the jukebox hummed a dirge that no one was listening to. The bartender froze when Gabriel entered. No one ever remembered the shape of his face after he left. Only the feeling that the grave had walked through the door. I'm looking for the sanctum, Gabriel said quietly. The bartender swallowed. You don't want to go there, man. That's church for monsters. Then I'm their confession! From the back room, a figure stirred, heavy boots, a coat that reeked of incense and oil. The man's hand glinted with a ring engraved with the eye and thorns, the brother's symbol. He smirked, you one of them believers? The faithful always find their way. Gabriel turned slowly, the light catching on his mask, pale, expressionless, save for that single black tear. The man's smile faltered, holy Christ! Not quite, Gabriel murmured. A heartbeat later, the lights went out. The only illumination came from the faint shimmer of the crow's wings. When they flickered back, the man was on his knees, whispering prayers that were half apology, half
plea. Gabriel leaned close. Tell me where they gather. Warehouse 13, by the river. The man stammered. Under the old bridge, they say it's where the angels fell. Gabriel rose. Then that's where they'll fall again! He left the man trembling and stepped back into the rain. The city around him pulsed with neon veins, lights flickering through fog, drawing symbols of sin across every surface. To him, the lights looked like stained glass, and each shadow was a confession. The crow landed on his shoulder. You remember what vengeance costs, don't you? I remember what silence cost first. A gust of wind swept the street, carrying torn flyers and whispers like leaves through the rain. Gabriel glimpsed his reflection in a window, the mask gleaming, the tear glistening like obsidian. Behind him, faintly, the reflection of Elena's painting appeared for a moment. The same mask, the same eyes, as if her dream had bled into the waking world. The crow looked toward the horizon. The river calls, the dead still wait! Gabriel followed its gaze. In the distance, the neon signs dimmed one by one like candles snuffed out by unseen hands. The night seemed to breathe deeper, hungrier. The hunt had truly begun! And the city of angels, bathed in false light, did not yet realize that its savior had returned in shadow.
The river smelled of rust and incense. It crawled beneath the old bridge like a wound that never healed, its surface broken by shards of moonlight. Somewhere beneath the trembling light waited the place called Sanctum, a cathedral of filth built from the bones of faith. Gabriel stood at the river's edge, his reflection rippling and vanishing with each breath of the wind. The crow perched on a rusted post nearby, feathers ruffled by the mist. You know who waits inside, it said. Gabriel nodded once. The man who thinks himself a god. He crossed the plank bridge and slipped through the broken gate, moving like smoke beyond the fence. Firelight flickered through shattered windows. Chanting rolled across the water, low and rhythmic. Sanguis est feeds. Sanguis est feeds. Blood is faith. Inside, Sanctum pulsed with unholy ritual. Hundreds of candles dripped their wax onto stone floors carved with symbols that mimicked sacred sigils, but twisted their meanings. The air throbbed with drum beats and the moans of those too lost to care if they prayed to heaven or hell. And at the center of it all stood the golden mask. He was tall, draped in robes of white now stained with red, a crown of black thorns circling his brow. The mask he wore gleamed in the candlelight, gold, beautiful, and utterly wrong. Beneath it, his voice rang like the tolling of a cracked bell. My brothers, the angels abandoned us, but we have made our own heaven, and we are its gods! The crowd howled in reply, hands raised, knives glinting. Gabriel moved along the edges of the hall. Unseen, the mask he wore turned the light into something spectral. And for a moment, He looked like one of the painted saints staring down from the ruined ceiling, only darker, truer.
Who is he? Gabriel whispered.
The crow cocked its head. He was once called Father Morrow, a priest who mistook fear for faith, the first to trade miracles for blood. The chants grew louder. Morrow raised his hands, and from the shadows, two men dragged a figure forward. A woman, bound and trembling, her eyes caught the candlelight. For an instant, Gabriel saw Elena's face reflected there. Not her, but close enough to ignite fury in his veins. The knife rose. Gabriel moved. The candles guttered. The drums stopped. A sound like thunder filled the hall. Though no storm raged outside, figures scattered as the crow burst through the rafters, crying out, a scream of broken heaven! Gabriel stepped into the light. His mask glowed white, the single black tear cutting a streak down its cheek. Your God hears you, he said, and he sends me instead. Morrow froze. What are you? Gabriel tilted his head, vengeance dressed as forgiveness. Then the room erupted, blades flashed, candles fell. Gabriel's movements were fluid, almost ritualistic, the choreography of wrath. Each blow was a psalm, each scream a verse. The woman broke free and fled. The crow followed, circling her like a shield of feathers. When silence returned, only Morrow remained standing. He removed the golden mask. Slowly beneath it, his face was human, gaunt, scarred, eyes fever bright. You think you can kill sin? He rasped. You'll drown in it before the end. Gabriel stepped closer. Then I'll drown smiling. Morrow smiled back, a smile that bled. You don't know what you serve, Shadow! You think it's justice, but it's hunger. The crow feeds on both. He lunged, a flash of steel, but Gabriel caught his wrist. The knife clattered to the floor for a heartbeat. They were eye to eye, the false prophet and the dead man reborn! I see you, Morrow whispered. I see her in your eyes. She still burns there. Gabriel drove him back into the altar. The stone-cracked blood, mortal blood, spilled across the carvings. The candles flickered out! When Gabriel turned away, the golden mask lay cracked beside the corpse, its reflection distorted as if melting in unseen fire! The crow landed beside it. Cut off one head, and faith grows another. Gabriel looked toward the black water beyond the window, then we'll burn the whole sermon. Outside, dawn trembled faintly on the horizon, but in the city of angels, the light was always just another kind of shadow!
The rain had not stopped since the night he shattered Sanctum. It fell like penance upon the city of angels, washing its sins into the gutters, yet somehow leaving everything dirtier. The streets glimmered with reflections that didn't belong to the living.
Faces of those who died too young staring up from puddles, whispering beneath the roar of thunder. Gabriel Wren walked through it, the crow following close, its feathers slick with water, its eyes burning faintly in the dark. Every drop that struck Gabriel's mask ran down like another black tear. The river rises again. The crow murmured, blood remembers its own path. He said nothing. He could feel the pulse beneath the city like a heartbeat beneath stone. Something vast, ancient, waiting. And at its center, Elena. He found her standing at the edge of St. Gabriel's Bridge, the rain cloaking her like a shroud. She didn't turn when he approached. Her hands were clasped around a small bundle wrapped in cloth. A book, or maybe a relic. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. Her voice trembled, though it held no fear. "Neither should you, Gabriel." He stepped closer, the rain between them shimmered like glass. "How long have you known?" She turned then, her eyes rimmed with tears and light. "Since the night you died, since I dreamed of the crow landing on your grave. It told me you would come again when the city called for you. The city doesn't call," he said, "it screams." She smiled, faintly. "And you always answer." He looked at the bundle in her arms. "What's that?" She unwrapped it. Inside was a journal, old and bound in cracked leather. Its pages were filled with drawings, circles, sigils, words written in ink that looked too dark to be anything but blood. "This belonged to Father Moreau," she whispered. "I found it in the ruins of Sanctum after you left. It tells everything." Gabriel took it, opening the book with care. The pages smelled of smoke and despair. In the margins were sketches of faces, children, women, even his own, drawn with obsessive detail. At the center of the book was a single page marked with the sign of the golden mask. Beneath it, in neat script, a prayer twisted into a curse. "The sacrifice reborn will bind the angel to the blood. Through love, we open the gate. Through loss, we keep it open." Gabriel froze. His gloved hand trembled slightly. "This isn't a ritual for power," he said. "It's a ritual for resurrection." Elena looked away. They needed the essence of a bond, a soul tethered by love and death. You were that bond, Gabriel. They killed you not just to destroy you, but to use what remained. He closed the book. "And you?" "I was the key," she said, her voice breaking the living half. "They believed that if my soul ever reunited with yours, willingly or not, it would complete their covenant. They'd open something they don't understand." Thunder cracked, the river surged below. Gabriel took a step back. "So saving you might doom everything," she finished, tears mixing with rain. "But I won't let them use me again." The crow hopped closer, head cocked. "Love is the oldest ritual. It builds altars out of bones and prayers alike." Elena looked to the sky. "I dreamed of you, Gabriel, not just the man, but the shadow. The rain always fell, and when it stopped, the world ended. Maybe that's what we are, the pause between storms." Gabriel reached out, brushing her cheek with his gloved fingers. For a moment, she leaned into his touch. The mask reflected her face, distorted but luminous. Then the
sound came. Distant, sharp, echoing through the rain. A horn, a chant. From across the bridge, torchlight flickered. Figures in robes, symbols glowing red against the darkness, the brothers of blood! Elena's eyes widened. They found us. Gabriel turned, his coat sweeping like a shadow unfurled. Then let them come! The crow rose into the storm, its cry splitting the sky. Lightning flared, framing Gabriel against the burning horizon like an avenging saint! The brothers advanced, torches hissing in the downpour, and at the bridge's center stood the man who had already died once for love, ready to do so again. The rain fell harder, and beneath the neon skyline, the city of angels began to tremble.
The rain became a flood that swallowed sound. Lightning burned white scars across the black sky, and thunder rolled like a chorus of angels fallen from grace. Gabriel Wren stood at the center of St. Gabriel's Bridge, cloak clinging to him like a shadow that refused to die. Behind him, Elena clutched the crow, wounded but still watching, its wings twitching against her hands around them. The river screamed. From both ends of the bridge came torchlight. Dozens of men emerged. The brothers of blood, hoods drawn, blades gleaming, chanting in fevered unison. Sanguisest feeds. Sanguisest feeds. Blood is faith. Blood is faith. Their voices rose above the rain, a litany of madness. The one who led them wore the cracked half of the golden mask, his eyes burning with religious hunger. Bring him to the altar! He roared, the gate must open! Gabriel drew no weapon, his vengeance needed none. The mask turned toward the torchlight, its single black tear gleaming like oil and fire. Come then, he whispered, let faith meet its reckoning. The first of them rushed forward. Knife-high Gabriel met him halfway. The impact was thunder, bone against eternity. The man flew backward, landing hard, his knife skittering across wet stone. Another came, then three more. Gabriel moved through them like rain through smoke, every motion silent, precise blade shattered on contact, flesh met an unyielding will. The brothers screamed prayers even as they died, their blood mixing with the storm. Lightning flared again, illuminating the bridge like a cathedral of ruin. Each strike of thunder was answered by the clash of steel, by the whisper of wings above. Elena watched from the bridge's archway, clutching the crow to her chest. The creature trembled, its eyes glowing faintly, a flicker of the same light she had seen in Gabriel's gaze when he rose from the grave. He is what they made, the crow rasped weakly, but not what they wanted. The leader of the brothers stepped forward, mask gleaming. You think you fight for love, Shadow? He called over the storm.
You fight for the curse that binds this city! Gabriel's voice came low, edged in iron. Then I'll be the curse that ends it. The two collided, mask against mask, belief against ruin. The golden mask's knife arced down, striking sparks as it met Gabriel's arm for a moment. The blade shattered, scattering fragments like dying stars. But then, the man seized a shard of metal from the ground, jagged, desperate, and drove it toward Gabriel's chest. The sound was wet, final. Gabriel staggered back. The shard had pierced him for the first time since his return. He bled. The color was darker than blood should be, a shadow more than a stain. Above, the crow screamed. It tried to rise, but one of the brothers struck it mid-flight. The bird fell, wings twisting, and hit the stone beside Elena. No! She cried, falling to her knees. She gathered the crow, pressing its trembling body to her heart. Stay with me, please. Gabriel dropped to one knee. His hand went to the wound, black liquid running between his fingers. The brothers cheered, thinking the monster undone. But as Elena whispered to the crow words of comfort, of love, something shifted. The rain slowed, the thunder stilled. The mask upon Gabriel's face began to glow from within, faintly at first, then brighter, until it burned with ghostly fire. The shard of metal slid from his chest and clattered to the ground. The wound closed, leaving no mark. He rose again, taller than the storm, eyes burning like twin moons. The leader stepped back, trembling. What are you? Gabriel's voice was no longer merely human. I am what you made when you killed love. He moved once. A single, unstoppable step, and the man in the golden mask was no more. The bridge trembled as if in morning rain fell harder, washing the blood from stone. Elena stood in the doorway, the crow now steady in her hands, its wing whole again. Their eyes met across the storm. In hers was sorrow, in his silence. The gate is closing, the crow said softly, but something else is waking. Gabriel looked toward the city, the towers lit with false light, the streets glistening with the aftermath of sin. Their faith is dead, he said, but their hunger isn't. He turned away as the bridge's last torches died, leaving only the sound of rain and the faint echo of chanting dissolving into wind. The choir of knives was silent, but the city of angels had not yet drawn its last breath.
Morning came late to the city of angels. The rain had slowed, but it left behind a stillness that was worse than noise. The hush of a cathedral after all the worshippers are gone. The silence of a wound after it stops bleeding. Gabriel stood at the bridge's edge, looking down into the swollen river. The water had turned black beneath the sky, carrying the ashes of torches and men alike. Each ripple shimmered faintly, as if it carried memories instead of light. The crow perched on the railing beside him, feathers still damp. "The brothers are finished," it croaked, but not the faith that birthed them. Gabriel turned, eyes glinting through the mask. "You mean the city itself?" The bird's head tilted. "You think this place was built on hope? No, it was built on fear. Fear of death, fear of silence. Men prayed for angels to save them, and when none came, they made their own." He looked across the skyline. The city of angels rose like a mausoleum of light, towers gleaming with false gold, streets glittering with sin. From above, it almost looked beautiful. From below, it stank of despair. Elena stepped beside him, her coat wrapped tight against the wind. "You never told me what you see when you look at it," she said. He took a long breath. "I see a city that once dreamed of heaven and woke to find hell wearing its name." She watched him quietly. "Can you really destroy something like that?" "I can remind it that shadows have names," he said softly. They left the bridge behind and descended into the heart of the city. There, beneath the neon spires and forgotten cathedrals, they found the ruins, tunnels older than any street, catacombs carved by hands that still feared the dark. The air was thick with the smell of wax and dust. Elena's candle flickered as they moved deeper. Strange frescoes covered the walls, angels drawn in chains, their halos cracked, their wings bound in iron. The inscriptions were written in Latin, half faded. Lux Perditus Umbra Regnet. The light is lost. The shadow reigns. Gabriel brushed his hand along the wall. The paint flaked away beneath his touch, revealing another layer beneath. Older, darker there. Carved into the stone was a figure, a man in a mask with a single black tear. Elena gasped, "That's you!" "No," he said, "it's what came before me!" The crow fluttered down to his shoulder, its eyes glinting like molten gold. Every century when the city's faith turns to blood, something rises to answer it, not from heaven, not from hell, from the wound between them. Gabriel looked up at the carving again. "Then I'm not the first, nor the last," the crow said. They moved on. The tunnel opened into a chamber lit by the trembling light of hundreds of candles, each one burning before a mask hung upon the wall. Golden masks, wooden masks, masks carved of bone, every one marked with a black tear. Elena stepped closer, voice trembling. "It's a shrine." "To vengeance," Gabriel whispered. "To those who rose before me, the city prays to its own shadows." From somewhere in the dark, a whisper rose, not human, not spirit, but the city itself speaking through stone and echo. "Every angel must fall to rise again." The candles flared for a moment. Gabriel saw them, the others, figures like himself, standing in rows along the walls. Men and women wearing masks of grief and fury, their eyes hollow but
staggered back. They're bound here. Elena reached for him, her hand warm against his. Then free them. He looked at her, the living half of his curse, the spark that tethered him to mercy. Freedom isn't given, he said, it's remembered. He stepped forward, raised his hand, and pressed it against the wall. The carvings began to glow, the candles bending toward him like flowers to the sun. A hum filled the air, low, resonant, like the breath of the earth itself. The crow took flight, circling above, its cry echoing through the catacombs. When the light dimmed, the masks were gone. Only their shadows remained, hundreds of silhouettes stretching outward, merging into one vast shape that covered the ceiling like wings. Elena stared upward. What happens now? Gabriel lowered his hand. Now the city will remember, and so will its monsters. They climbed back toward the street, the faint scent of candle smoke following them like a benediction. Above, dawn tried once more to break through the storm, but the clouds refused to part. The city of angels still prayed, not to gods, not to saints, but to its own darkness. And somewhere beneath their feet, the freed shadows began to stir.
The city of angels waited beneath a sky swollen with thunder. The air itself felt alive, humming with electricity, heavy with the scent of rust and rain. Neon signs flickered and died, one by one, as if the city were blinking in fear. The storm had been coming for days, a weight pressing down from heaven and rising up from hell, meeting at last in the air above the streets. Gabriel Wren felt it in his bones. Each heartbeat echoed with the pulse of the storm, each breath a whisper of the dead. He walked beside Elena, their footsteps silent on the wet pavement, the crows circling low overhead. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the skyline like the ribs of some great corpse. The city trembles. The crow said softly, "Something ancient is waking." Gabriel stopped beneath a flickering street lamp. The brothers are broken. What else could there be? Faith never dies. The bird croaked. It just changes its name. Elena hugged her coat tighter, glancing up at the thunderheads. It feels like the whole city is holding its breath. He looked at her, truly looked, and saw the truth the storm was trying to hide. There was a faint glow beneath her skin, like moonlight trapped in flesh. It pulsed in rhythm with the thunder. "What have they done to you?" he whispered. She shook her head, tears mixing with rain. When they failed to raise their God, they turned to me. They believed the blood that touched your grave carried power. They found me. Gabriel, they took me once before you came back. His hands curled into fists. and they marked you. Yes. Her voice broke. The sigil burned into my shoulder. It binds me to their right. Even now I can feel it burning when they speak their prayers. Gabriel reached out, but stopped before touching her. His fingers hovered inches from her skin. Then we'll break it. How? She asked. The mark isn't just on me. It's in the city. It's written in every wall, every whisper, every lie that keeps people afraid. Lightning flared again. White, blinding, the wind rose, tearing papers and signs from the walls. The storm was no longer waiting. It was descending. They found shelter beneath the overhang of an abandoned chapel inside. The air was cold and smelled of mold and candle wax. A statue of an angel lay toppled in the corner, one wing broken, its face worn away. Elena knelt before it, tracing the cracks along the stone. Do you think angels ever envy the dead? She asked. Gabriel's voice was low. If they could feel, they would envy love. The crow landed on the altar, feathers shaking off droplets of rain. You are the storm's heart, it told Elena. That is why they fear you. That is why they want to make you their offering. The storm ends when your blood stops. Elena rose, her eyes luminous in the dark. Then I won't give them what they want. I'll give them something else. A reason to remember what they destroyed. Gabriel turned toward her, a strange calm settling in his chest. You sound like me. She smiled faintly. Or maybe you sound like me. Outside, the thunder cracked again, closer now, echoing through the streets like drums of war. In the distance, sirens began to wail, blending with the wind into a dirge for the living. Through the broken window, Gabriel saw figures gathering on the rooftops, shadows wearing masks, remnants of the brothers of blood still clinging to their lost faith. They raised torches against the rain, chanting words that carried even through the storm. The offering must be made! The crow's feathers bristled, they come. Gabriel looked at Elena, the lightning flashing in his eyes. Then the storm will have its sacrifice! He stepped into the rain, spreading his arms to the sky. The thunder answered him like an old friend. Come to me, he whispered to the city, to the brothers, to the heavens themselves. Come and see what your faith has made. Elena followed him into the storm. The wind tangled her hair. The rain turned her tears to silver, and the sigil on her shoulder burned like a brand. Yet she did not flinch. Behind them, the chapel's fallen angel cracked in two, its wings breaking apart. The pieces fell to the floor like feathers turned to stone. Above, the crow screamed into the tempest, a sound that carried across the city and struck every heart with a single wordless truth. The reckoning had begun.
storm had reached its peak. Rain fell in sheets that blurred the city into watercolor. Lights running, streets melting, faces vanishing behind veils of water. Thunder rolled like the footsteps of something vast and unseen moving above the clouds. Gabriel and Elena moved through the alleys, guided by the crow's shadow. They spoke little, every word felt fragile, like a prayer whispered in a church already burning. The crow flew low, wings cutting through the rain. "They are near," it murmured. "The brothers are not dead. They have been waiting for this night." Gabriel's gaze scanned the rooftops. He could feel them, shapes moving in rhythm with the storm, watching. They're afraid. Afraid men are the most dangerous kind, the crow said. They crossed St. Haven's Square, where the old cathedral lay half submerged in shadow. The building's spire had been struck by lightning decades ago, but still stood crooked, defiant, an old saint who refused to fall. It was there that Gabriel first felt the change. The rain slowed, the air thickened, the sound of the city faded, replaced by the faint hum of chanting, distant, echoing through pipes and tunnels beneath their feet. Elena froze, her hand went to her shoulder, clutching the mark that burned faintly through her coat. "Gabriel," she whispered, "they're calling me." Before he could answer, the light from a street lamp exploded overhead. Darkness swallowed them both. Figures emerged from the rain, men in crimson robes, masks gleaming wetly. They moved like one body, a tide of faith and madness. Torches hissed in the downpour. Gabriel lunged forward, but they were ready. Chains slick with oil coiled around his arms and throat. He tore at them, the metal snapping, but not before they dragged Elena backward into the dark. "Gabriel!" she screamed. Her voice was ripped away by thunder. He saw her for an instant, hair tangled, eyes wide, hand reaching, then she was gone! The brothers vanished into the storm, their chants rising into a fevered hymn. Sanguis est feeds, the offering, the gate! Gabriel fell to his knees, rain running down his mask in black rivulets. The crow landed beside him, feathers bristling. "They've taken her to the river," it hissed, "to the church of fallen angels." He rose, every muscle trembling, not from weakness, but from restraint. He wanted to tear the sky apart, to drag the city itself down into ruin. But the crow's voice cut through the fury. "If you burn too brightly, you'll destroy her with them." He stopped the rain, soaked him to the bone, yet he felt nothing, only the cold weight of purpose pressing against his ribs. "Show me," he said. The crow took flight. Its cry pierced the night, guiding him through the maze of the city, the tunnels beneath the bridge, the forgotten stairwells that led to the river's edge. Lightning flared overhead, revealing the silhouette of the dilapidated church that waited like a coffin on the shore. Its spire was cracked, its windows shattered, its bell long silent. And yet tonight,
The bell tolled. Once, twice, thrice. Each sound rolled through the rain like a heartbeat. Gabriel reached the church gates. The doors were barred, heavy with rust, but they gave way beneath his hands inside. The candles were already lit, rows of them lined the pews, their flames trembling, their wax running like tears. At the far end of the nave stood an altar of stone. Elena lay upon it, bound in silver chains, her eyes open but distant, as though caught between waking and dream around her. The brothers of blood knelt in a circle, chanting low and fervent. At their center stood the new prophet, the last heir of the golden mask, his robe soaked through, his eyes reflecting the lightning that split the sky beyond the broken roof. We failed once, he said to his congregation, but tonight the gate will open, the angel will rise, and the shadow will serve. Gabriel stepped forward. The crow circled above him, its cry echoing through the vaulted dark. The prophet smiled when he saw him. You came as the scripture promised. Scripture! Gabriel's voice was quiet, but it filled the church. You wrote it in blood. The prophet lifted a hand. The chanting grew louder. The torches flared. The sigil on Elena's shoulder blazed bright white. The crow screamed. The stained glass shattered inward. The storm itself had entered the church. And as the last bell tolled, the walls began to shake. The trap had been sprung.
Elena stood in the doorway. The crow perched on his shoulder, feathers whole again. Gabriel looked at her through the dying light. His mask was cracked now, the tear on its cheek glimmering like a river under moonlight. She met his gaze. It's over, she whispered. He shook his head. Not yet vengeance sleeps, but never dies. She walked to him, taking his hand, cold, unyielding, then rest for a while. The city will need you again soon enough. Outside, the storm began to fade. The church stood in ruin, sanctified, not by blood, but by love that refused to surrender. The sanctuary of blood had become holy once more. The rain had stopped. The city of angels lay in stillness, wrapped in steam and silence, as if the storm had taken the world's breath with it.
The church stood broken and blackened on the riverbank. Its windows shattered, its altar cracked. Smoke rose from the pews like incense for the dead. Gabriel Wren stood among the ruins, mask half broken, coat torn and soaked with rain. The crow perched on his shoulder, feathers damp but shining faintly in the first gray light of dawn. Elena knelt by the altar, her hand resting on the cold stone, her lips moving in silent prayer, not for salvation, but for release. It's finished, she said softly. No. Gabriel's voice was quiet, heavy. It's ended, but not finished. He turned toward the far end of the church, where the prophet's body had fallen. The golden mask lay beside him, cracked in two, even broken it gleamed faintly, as if the metal itself refused to die. Gabriel walked to it and knelt. The reflection of his own face shimmered across its surface, distorted, twisted, two halves staring at one another through eternity. He reached out and lifted one of the shards. The crow shifted uneasily. Careful! It whispered. Faith has a way of remaking itself. Gabriel looked at the mask, then at the corpse that had once worn it. This was never faith. This was fear dressed in scripture. Elena joined him, her steps soft on the ruined floor, then ended. He stood, holding the broken gold in his palm. How do you destroy a god made of lies? By showing them the truth, she said. Gabriel closed his hand. The gold cut into his skin, but no blood flowed. The metal began to darken, turning black beneath his touch. A sound like whispering voices filled the air, the dying prayers of the brothers dissolving into smoke. He threw the pieces into the river that ran below the church. They hit the surface with a hiss, sinking fast, and where they fell, the water boiled for a heartbeat before growing still. The crow spread its wings. So ends the last sermon. But Gabriel's gaze lingered on the river. No sermon ever truly ends. The words live on in men's hearts, in every hand that clings to power, in every voice that calls cruelty justice. Elena stepped beside him. The light of dawn touched her face, soft and pure against the ruin. Then we keep watch, she said, until the next lie rises. He looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time since death, his eyes seemed almost human. You'd wait that long. She smiled faintly. I already have. The crow cawed once, interrupting the fragile moment. The city stirs. They will find the bodies, they will tell new stories, they will make new myths. Gabriel nodded, let them. Every myth begins with a warning. He turned toward the altar, the sigils carved there, those same symbols of blood and faith began to fade, the stone drinking in their memory, in their place. New marks began to appear, not carved by hand, but by light. A single feather, a mask, a tear. The crow watched silently, then whispered, even vengeance can be holy if love is what shapes it. Elena took Gabriel's hand. His touch was cold, but steady. Will you go back to the grave now?
she asked. He looked toward the open doors where the dawn had begun to pierce the mist. Not yet the city still remembers their fear. I need to see what's left when the sun rises. Together, they stepped into the light. Outside, the streets were wet, gleaming, quiet, for the first time in years. No chanting echoed, no sirens wailed, only the sound of water dripping from rooftops and the faint flutter of wings above. Gabriel stopped on the church steps. Behind him, the broken bell began to toll, not by hand, but by wind. A final requiem for the faith that had burned its children. He raised his head. The brothers of blood are ashes, but ashes feed the soil. Something new will grow. Elena squeezed his hand. Then we'll be here to see what blooms. The crow took flight, circling once above them, its cry bright against the pale dawn. The golden mask was gone, but its reflection lingered faintly in the river below, fading slowly, swallowed by light.
The day after the storm was pale and trembling. The city of angels lay beneath a fragile sun, its streets glistening with the silver residue of rain. Smoke still rose from the ruins of the church, curling upward like the ghost of a prayer. Gabriel Wren stood upon the riverbank, mask in his hand. Beneath the mask, his face looked tired, not aged, but timeless, carved by everything he had loved and lost. The crow perched on a rusted railing nearby, feathers slick with dew. "You've done what you came for," it said. "The brothers are gone. The city breathes again." Gabriel watched the river move. Slow, endless breath is not the same as peace. Peace is not for the likes of us, the crow answered. Only balance. He looked up toward the skyline, where the fog had begun to lift. Balance, he repeated. Maybe that's all heaven ever was. Behind him, Elena approached, her steps quiet on the damp earth. She wore no mask, no cloak, only the look of someone who had finally learned how fragile light could be. "You can stop now," she said softly. "You've done enough." He turned to her. "I've killed enough." She shook her head. "You saved them, even if they never know it." Gabriel looked down at the mask in his hand. "This was supposed to end with my death." "Maybe it does," she said. "Just not the way you think." She reached out,
touching his hand. Her warmth seeped through the cold. You can rest, Gabriel. You don't have to fight the dark anymore. The crow fluttered its wings uneasily. Careful, it warned. Every gift from love is a sacrifice in disguise. Elena turned her gaze to the bird, eyes bright, and every curse is a promise kept too long. The wind picked up, stirring the air with the scent of rain and stone. Gabriel's mask slipped from his grasp, falling to the ground, landing face up in the mud, the black tear glistening faintly in the sun. He knelt to pick it up, but stopped. His reflection stared back from the water beside it, and beside his own face, Elena's appeared, faint and shimmering. For a moment, he thought it was the light. Then he realized it was a vision. The crow's eyes began to glow. A light the color of dying stars filled the air. Its voice changed, not the rasping whisper of a familiar companion, but something vast, ancient, and tender. I cannot hold this veil for long, it said, its tone vibrating through the earth itself. Elena, Gabriel, the time has come. Elena stepped forward, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Is this goodbye? The voice replied, this is beginning, embrace him, child of light. She turned to Gabriel, the man who had died for love, risen for vengeance, and suffered for both. Without hesitation, she stepped into his arms. He felt her warmth, the pulse of life, and then something deeper, stranger, her soul unfolding like wings. For a moment, there was nothing but light. It filled the graveyard, the river, the city itself. Every shadow lifted, every drop of rain turned to silver. Then came the voice again, softer now, fading. Now the prophecy is complete. The city of angels has its guardian. 2 hearts, 1 soul. One half walks in love by day. The other half walks in vengeance by night. 1 body, 2 spirits, eternal balance. Gabriel held her as the light dimmed. Her form began to shimmer, not vanishing, but changing half. Her face became translucent, a reflection of his own mask. The crow took flight, wings trailing light, circling them once before, disappearing into the dawn. Gabriel closed his eyes. The heartbeat he felt was no longer only his.
Dusk returned to the city of angels. The sky burned crimson, and the first stars blinked awake above the skyline. People walked the streets unaware of what watched from the rooftops, unaware that their prayers, whispered or silent, had already been heard.
one side of the river, a woman with dark hair and luminous eyes walked among them. Her touch healed bruises, her smile calmed storms. They called her Elena, though some swore she was only a dream. And when the sun fell and the streets grew cold, another figure took her place. A man in a cracked mask, his shadow long beneath the moonlight. Criminals whispered his name in fear and victims in awe. They called him the angel in shadow. Two halves, one soul. A single heartbeat that pulsed through the veins of a city still learning to breathe. From a spire high above, the crow watched with glowing eyes. It tilted its head once, then spoke into the wind. Its words carried through alleys and over rooftops. The city remembers the angels have returned. Below, the woman paused in her walk. Above, the man paused in his hunt. For a single breath, they both looked toward the same horizon and smiled. The city exhaled. The night began again, and beneath the neon and the rain, the balance held. Vengeance by night, love by day, forever bound in shadow and light.